A massive wave of protests is sweeping Hungary. Thousands of trucks, countless farmers, and hundreds of thousands of citizens are taking to the streets. They share one common enemy: Orban, Putin, and the entrenched oligarchic system. On December 22nd and 23rd, thousands of angry truck drivers protesting Victor Orban's regime turned one of the country's most important logistics routes into a metal highway jam. The convoy stretched for miles along the M3 motorway. This wasn't just a strike, it was a logistical revolt that exposed a major weakness in Europe's supply chain. The government's crushing toll hikes, disguised as infrastructure fees, were the last straw. Thousands of drivers effectively paralyzed Budapest by simply turning off their engines. The sound of honking trucks echoed across the city, proving that Orban's promises of stability had collapsed under the pressure of his own working class. The protest's epicenter, the M3 highway, runs from northeastern Hungary to the capital and is Europe's transit backbone. This route isn't just a road, it's a strategic corridor for goods moving from Ukraine, Romania, and Slovakia into Western Europe. On the morning of December 22nd, drivers organized under the Turb Mint Truckers movement blocked this vital route with their massive vehicles, shutting down Budapest's northern entry. According to UT-informed data, the blockade didn't just affect the M3, it also jammed the M0 ring road, the main distribution belt around the city. Rest areas and connecting roads were packed with immobile trucks. Drone footage shows the outer lanes completely occupied, while the other lanes ground to a halt. So why did this happen? The spark was the government's new toll regulations, quietly introduced at the end of November. These rules would have increased tolls on main roads by over 50%, far above inflation, threatening to wipe out the profit margins of smaller haulers. In response to backlash, the government made a partial retreat, reducing the increase to 35% and postponing the full ban until March 2026. But this did not calm the anger. In fact, it deepened distrust. Smaller haulers realized that deals were made behind closed doors with large logistics giants, allegedly linked to Orban's son-in-law, leaving small operators locked out and powerless. To see this congestion as just a traffic headache is a mistake. This is a strategic lever. Hungary sits at the distribution hub of Central Europe. Industrial components from Germany, textile and food shipments from Turkey, raw materials from the Balkans, all pass through Hungary. Blocking these roads is like squeezing a vital artery. If the M0 and M3 stay blocked, it will disrupt Europe's supply chain. The timing makes it worse. This happened during the peak holiday season, when retail inventories are critical. A traffic jam in Budapest could lead to empty supermarket shelves in Vienna or halt just-in-time production in Munich factories. Hungarian truckers are turning economic muscle into political leverage, much like Poland's farmer protests or France's yellow vests. Orban's image as a strong leader is cracking. When logistics stop, the state's machinery stops, and right now Hungary's engine is sputtering. This metallic lockdown on the M3 isn't just a traffic problem, it's a diagnostic of structural collapse in Orban's regime. The government now faces an economic uprising from within, led by its own working class. Truck drivers are part of Orban's core voter base. Their message is simple: we can't survive. The system is killing us. A new political actor, Peter Maguire and the TISA party, may harness this anger. While they didn't organize the protest, Maguire's statement of support shows the potential to turn public outrage into political capital. This is a nightmare for both Orban and Putin. Putin's influence in Europe has been a fortress for years, and Orban his loyal ally. But on the night of December 14th, the fortress shook. Streets in Budapest went viral worldwide, with hundreds of thousands marching with torches, not in celebration, but in protest. The crowd demanded an end to impunity and called for Orban's resignation. The parliament building was surrounded, and opposition leaders amplified the message. Enough is enough. Chaos loomed over the order Putin and his elite built. So this wave follows political tremors in Bulgaria, showing a broader European resistance to Russian influence. These protests aren't just internal, they strike at the Kremlin's last foothold in Europe. Orban's government is wobbling, and for the first time, Moscow feels genuine isolation and pressure. Just hours after the protests, Putin issued a public statement insisting that all current hardships weren't due to Russia's actions, but were instead the work of those with, malicious intent. You are forced to pay for the fight against the Russian medical threat out of your own pocket. A global superpower is giving speeches while hundreds of thousands die on the front lines, and millions in the heart of Europe are, honestly, starving, homeless, and struggling in inhumane conditions. And he claims that the current crisis stems from years of mistakes, short-sightedness, and greed by the ruling elites of these nations. This isn't new. It happened in Georgia in 2008 during the Chechen massacres, when Crimea was annexed in 2014, and now in Ukraine. But tonight, Putin's speech is especially notable. It's no coincidence. His last stronghold, Orban, is crumbling, and Europe is finally standing up to tyranny, oligarchy, and Kremlin influence. While Romania saw a familiar scenario a few days ago, the variables in Budapest were different. These protests didn't begin with foreign-backed opposition. They emerged around Peter Maguire, a figure from inside the system, who knew the regime's codes intimately. Maguire, a former bureaucrat, had observed firsthand Orban's power structures, media control, and judicial pressure. His greatest weapon was inside knowledge. The crowds he mobilized were far more than the usual opposition groups. They represented frustration from every corner of society. Kossuth Square, the heart of the protests, has seen many demonstrations before, but the energy and determination of this crowd were unprecedented in Orban's 14 years in power. People waved Hungarian flags and banners reading, "We are not afraid and resign," forcing the world to see what government-controlled media tried to hide: corruption and state capture. But it wasn't just Maguire's charisma fueling this. It was the result of years of economic hardship, inflation, and EU fund cuts. Orbán had long benefited from balancing between Brussels and Moscow, but now that balance is gone. Citizens are no longer focused on external fights. They are confronting the decay within their own state. The Tizer movement, founded by Maguire, is filling this void, offering not just protest but an alternative vision, transparent governance following European standards, not under Russia's shadow. From an intelligence standpoint, Moscow was surely monitoring Budapest closely. Orban was a friendly leader, a Trojan horse in NATO and the EU. But now, the wheels of that Trojan horse have broken. Years of Russian intelligence influence and disinformation campaigns have failed against this mass awakening of Hungarian citizens. This shows one thing clearly. No matter how powerful a regime seems, when a movement emerges from within, knows the system's weaknesses, and addresses real public concerns, that power evaporates instantly. The Peter Maguire phenomenon isn't just political rivalry. It's the collapse of a regime's immune system. The fire in Budapest is warming more than just the Danube. It's changing the political climate of Europe. Maguire has connected Orban's oligarchic narrative to the truckers' protest. The government's secret deals with giant companies tied to Orban's family, while crushing small haulers, prove his point. The state is run like a family business. This transforms a protest about economic rights into a legitimacy crisis for the regime. Another striking point is the boomerang effect of geopolitical blackmail. Orban used his EU veto as leverage. Now, truckers use the same power against him by blocking highways, showing the fragility of authoritarian control. The tighter the central grip, the faster a single point of congestion, here, the M3 highway, can paralyze the system. This crisis also undermines Hungary's role as a Trojan horse for Moscow or Beijing. A government unable to manage internal logistics or keep its capital functioning is an unreliable partner. Civil unrest and bureaucratic arbitrariness make transporting goods a gamble, collapsing the gateway to the East strategy. Ultimately, the Budapest blockade is an early warning for Orban ahead of the 2026 elections. Economic decline and high living costs can no longer be hidden behind nationalist rhetoric. The truckers' resistance proves that fear has a limit. The government can stop 50 trucks with police, but it cannot halt the economic desperation and anger of thousands of citizens. Those truck headlights lighting up Budapest at night are not a celebration. They are a signal of the approaching storm. Orban has defied Europe for years, but now he is trapped in his own backyard. When logistics stop, power stops. When hundreds of thousands protest against oligarchy, corruption, and inflation, order collapses. This blockade is the moment when Orban and Putin's illusion of control over Hungary crumbles. And this may be only the beginning.